Hi, today I want to talk to you and even ask you your opinion on being remaining a US citizen or becoming an expat, whether it's full-time, part-time, different variations. So, I've just gone through a recent divorce, and before the divorce, I was retired, and the two incomes, we had a modest retirement situation. So we sold our house up north and we got a decent amount of money over asking. We bought a house in Florida. So we had no mortgage. We had some savings or profit from the first house sale, and and the plan was start withdrawing from 401k. And as a last year, as a couple, you could withdraw up to 32,000 dollars from, say, a 401k before you, and pay no taxes, right? So you don't really break the tax threshold with that amount. So I had a plan. The plan was, we were in a 55 plus community with a lot of amenities, pools, and um, bowling alley and activities and stuff to keep you busy. And make new friends, all that kind of stuff. So it seemed like it was a sustainable, modest retirement plan with some money, available for emergencies and occasional excursions, but not too much, travel outside the U.S. and that kind of stuff. So not luxury retirement, but a sustainable, modest retirement. And I felt like, because I had gotten laid off from my 3 full-time jobs in 2023, and then I lost my 4th part-time job because it was connected to those 3, and I no longer had the professional email to qualify me for the 4th job, that it was time for me to consider early retirement. I did collect unemployment for the first 26 weeks of 2024, and but I really couldn't find a job that paid, full-time job that paid with benefits that appealed to me. So I tried to change my mindset of being, retired versus unemployed, and it was working. I had another snag. I was diagnosed with a rare cancer, 1% chance of cancer, less than 1% at my age. And not to get into too many details, but a reproductive type cancer. And and I didn't know this at the time, but I found out after the fact. If you've got any issues as a male, in that groin area, um, one quick thing to do, because I researched my symptoms and it all came back as a benign condition. I went to a nurse practitioner, I saw a medical doctor, an ultrasound, all were still thought it was this benign condition. And and so I put it off because it was moving and stuff like that. And I was like, well, it's benign. I can take care of it down the road. Well, had I known this tip, which I didn't know at the time, was, if you, as a male, if you go, a biological male, if you go to, to a drugstore and you buy pregnancy test, okay? So you pee on the stick. If if that says it's positive, right? Like then you have cancer. It's sort of a cheap way to screen yourself for cancer. Even if you think you've got this benign condition, because it's less than 1% chance that you have cancer in that region, then maybe pee on that stick. And if that stick comes back positive, then go get checked out. What happened to me is I put it off, and then my pain increased to the point where I went to the emergency room, and again, they did all kinds of tests on me, sexually transmitted tests that were all negative, blood tests were negative, um, ultrasound, you know, inconclusive. They wanted me to do a CAT scan, which I didn't want to do because of the extra radiation. I asked for an MRI, but it was a Sunday. They said there wasn't anybody there that could do an MRI, and I reluctantly agreed to the CAT scan. And then the surgeon asked for an MRI, and then miraculously an MRI was done, and then the MRI confirmed that I had cancer and I needed surgery, which I had like the next day or whatever. And I, recovered. I'm feeling okay. And then the next year, 2025, my wife served me for divorce. So financially, my situation was basically cut in half, which gets me back to the USA versus becoming expat. So I liked being retired. And I didn't mind, the modest or sort of shoestring type of existence. It was a little bit higher up than a shoestring. Now I'm sort of, at this shoestring level. And, could I go back to work? Maybe, yes. But like I said, I had 26 weeks looking, and, the unemployment only asks you to do evidence of 3 searches a week. And I was doing 3 or more per day, 6, 7 days a week. Cause I was like, I gotta, try to find something, and I couldn't find something. And, and any of you listening, any sympathetic ears here, you understand the job market at, an age where I have experienced, age discrimination. I've experienced, where you think that experience would count for you, it counts against you in certain fields. Because they don't want to pay you at the top of the scale based on your degrees and qualifications. And then if you lower those so that you can get an entry-level job, then they go, oh, well, you lied about, having these. So it's just like, and then why should you have to lie about your experience and education, right? So I'm not sure what to do. Right now, I'm in my mother's basement. And I am sleeping in my old childhood bedroom, which, she's not one of these mothers, even though I'm a single child, that left it the way I left it when I went to college. It has been transformed into a room that I don't recognize and is for her guests. So she's thinking about, finishing up the basement for a permanent space for me. And that is an option, and that is a nice action. So my mother is being generous in her actions, but she is harmful in her words, right? So she says a lot of things that hurts my feelings. It's been my whole life, but she's kind of a person that has no filter. She'll say, you look tired. You look like you've gained weight. You have no job. Why are you looking for relationships when, you don't have a car and you don't have a job, and who's going to want to date you, kind of thing. So just stuff like that. And guilt trip, oh, if you leave, you go somewhere, when I was, different things, she's very jealous. Like one time she threatened to sue me to see her grandkids because she wasn't seeing them as much as my ex's parents. So this kind of stuff. So I'm not, sure I want to stay living with my mom for the future. So I'm temporarily here. I'm in the north, in Massachusetts. I don't like the winter. So even if I was, in theory, to stay, I'm thinking maybe stay maximum till November 1st. And then I'd like to be somewhere warmer. So I know I could probably rent a room from somebody somewhere in Florida, and with the budget I have in mind, I really don't want to spend more than say $500 a month on rent, all inclusive, right? And I know that's a low bar, but that's kind of where I'd like to be. And I know basically some research I've done online says that this is possible in some other countries where you could uh, rent a one bedroom for about $500 a month, utilities included, and then I want it to be within walking distance of a town and activities. I don't want to. I sold my car as part of the divorce, and we split the proceeds, and I haven't replaced my car. And I'm liking not having a car payment and insurance and all that. But so I don't know if I stay here, I'm going to have to replace the car, and it's not really what I want to do. So I'm thinking about places, Mexico, Panama. Those are the closer ones. I know that, maybe like the Philippines or something like that. So I don't know what to do. So that's why I was kind of making the video. If anybody's watching, I appreciate you. And, if you like it, great. If you subscribe, great. I mean, I'm just asking for advice, and I don't want to ask my mother. So thanks for watching. If you have any advice, please put it in the comments. And thank you very much, and have a great day.